Welcome to Walking to Irithiru, Part 19. This time my wife's here. Now, this is the Overlady reads, and this week you read Oathbringer, or you're still reading Oathbringer.
Yeah, so the last two, I wrote my notes at the end of each part.
Yeah.
And then we recorded them after I'd finished the book.
Yes.
It's taken me a little bit longer with Oathbringer.
Oathbringer is a bit of a bigger book.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
So I'm about 60% of the way through the book. So I'm...
about halfway through part 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a little bit more to go.
A little bit more to go. But we thought we'd just get started recording because you have a lot to say about Oathbringer, which is nice, you know?
Yeah.
And so you've probably noticed this is only part 1. That's because we realised Wave Kings, we're quite happy with how long that was, but it was still a lot to get into a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Words of Radiance, we really struggled. So we thought, just Oathbringer, just screw it. We're just going to do one video per part. This is part 1, and we're literally going to be doing a part 2, a part 3. Maybe combine 4 and 5?
We're going to see how long they are.
Yeah, because 4 and 5 is shorter than 1 and 2 are individually, I think.
I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Cool. So let's jump right into it.
Cool. So the prologue.
Prologue. What happens in the prologue, Lucy?
You never guess who dies.
No. Don't tell me. Is it Gavilar?
No. Yeah. So Gavilar dies.
Yep.
I'm sensing that there's a theme going on here.
Yep.
But this time it's from the point of view of Eshonai.
Yeah, it's from Eshonai. I love Eshonai. Eshonai's great. I'm glad you love Eshonai as well. I'm glad.
For the 2 scenes that she was in the last book, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So she arrives in Thaylenah for the signing of the treaty celebration.
Yep.
And she sees some parshmen being used as slaves, and she's like, "Oh, that's not great."
Yeah.
And the other Parshendi that are with her are like, "Well, they're dull form. What do you expect?"
Yeah.
It's not like they care.
Yeah.
That's just what dull form do. They just follow orders.
That's just what they do.
She's wandering around the palace by herself, having a bit of an explore.
Because this is one of my favourite parts of Eshonai's character is the fact that she just wanders off. She's got a reputation for just going off and doing her own thing. Well, and I'm like, I like that.
Well, she's never left the Shattered Plains before.
Yeah.
And she's curious she's in a new city.
Yeah.
She's in a palace. She's checking it out. I can't blame her for a second. And she walks past a room where the doors open a bit.
Yes.
And she peeks in and she sees Gavilar and Amaram and a bunch of their little friends having a big old chat.
Yeah, I think there's 3 people in there. I think it's two dudes and 2 women, I think. Yeah.
I can't remember.
I think we've identified everyone in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can't remember. Amaram's in there. He's
Yeah, I was going to say no one else was named.
Yeah.
So, she sees them talking, and Amaram comes out, and he's like, Eshonai, Gavilar's looking for you.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, cool.
That's cool.
Get to chat with the king.
Yeah.
I like the king.
This will be a nice conversation that won't go bad.
Exactly. So she goes into the room, and Gavilar kicks everyone else out.
Yeah.
And he's like, Eshonai, look at this fabrial. And she's like, oh.
That's cool.
It's cool. You've trapped a spren.
Yeah.
Interesting. And she's quite horrified about this.
Yeah.
And then Gavilar, grabs her and he's like, look, we've now worked out how to use spren. We're going to bring back your old gods. Aren't you excited?
And she is not excited. She
is not.
Continues to be horrified. But then my favourite thing is that whilst Gavilar is like, we're going to bring back what essentially is in your culture are your demons. She's like, oh no, that's horrible. Oh, pretty map. And she gets distracted by the pretty map. And I love that she gets distracted because she just wants to explore and she loves it's a pretty map.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He then gives her a black sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yes.
that in the black spheres are like the spheres of like they're from like they're Odium's spren.
Okay.
Well, I've got two kind of working theories.
There's like two main theories.
The first, I think, maybe they're like spren of Odium.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
That's that one.
Yeah.
The other one I thought of was potentially inside the spheres.
Yeah.
Is it like one of the Unmade?
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
For a long time, I have theorized that there is an Unmade that was trapped in many spheres.
Yeah.
And like hidden about, like it was split up and it was trapped. And so I, for a long time, also thought that there was in the black spheres were pieces of this Unmade.
I mean, I now know that one's wrong, so thanks.
Well, no, because we still don't know. Well, okay, so...
I used to think this.
Yes, I used to think this because other theories are more likely. Like, Odium Spren, absolutely, potentially it could be that. You saw how Eshonai treats... Not Eshonai, in the interlude, we'll get to the interlude.
Yeah.
How she treats Ulim, I believe. The little yellow Spren that leads them into the chasms.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And so it's like, could it be something like that, one of them? Where it's like seems to be an Odium Spren.
Yeah.
There's also, what else is there? There's Void Light. That's a theory.
Yeah.
Because obviously you got Stormlight is of honor. And so it's like, okay, does Odium have his own light and is it in those spheres? There's definitely quite a few options.
Yeah.
And so, I'm glad you came to something. I'm glad you came to the Unmade one without my prompting at all, because I really liked that Unmade theory. It's probably not true, but I really liked it.
Cool.
Yeah.
He gives her the Dark Spear.
Yeah.
And tells her to take it to the Council of Five and see what they think.
How excited are they going to be, hey?
She's horrified. She runs out the room.
Yeah.
And she goes to the Council of Five and she's like, guys, the king wants to bring back our gods. Those gods that we abandoned because they are terrifying.
Yeah.
And they're like, cool. Luckily, we know there's an assassin nearby.
Luckily, we bought this assassin the other day.
Well, I don't think they own him.
They bought him from a slaver. He was...
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Fine. And they're like, cool. Well, we now own an assassin. So we'll just kill the king and that will definitely stop this from happening.
There's a line in there about when they bought Szeth, saying Venli when it was with the guy.
Yeah.
And Venli was the one that was kind of like, oh, we should buy that guy, because they were exploring the slave markets, because they were usually slavery was a new concept to them.
Yeah.
They were like, you guys just buy and sell people? And so they went to the slave markets, and then Venli was there, and then they just happened to buy Szeth.
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah. Yeah.
So then she leaves them to it and she runs off crying, and that's the end of the prologue.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a very sad, that last line, I can't remember what the last line of that is, and I brought the book over because I like it. The drums cut off around her and dying music echoed through the halls.
Cool.
I love that because then people start dying. It's great. It's great. I love it.
So the epigraphs.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't normally talk about the epigraphs.
Yeah, we completely forgot to talk about any epigraph.
Yeah, my bad.
Words of Radiance. Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
I normally just sort of like read them, theorize about them, and then just
move on.
Well, I kind of like incorporate those theories elsewhere. So I don't really talk about the epigraphs.
Yeah.
However, in my notes,
yes,
I have written the word epigraphs.
Yep.
Next to it, there is the word Adolin ?
Yeah.
So I thought maybe they were written by Adolin.
Okay.
At which point, that led me to, does he go to Shadesmar at some point?
Okay.
So...
I mean, one of the epigraphs says something about going to other places, yeah.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that it's Adolin from what is said in the text.
Yeah.
I have a feeling he goes to Shadesmar at some point.
Okay.
I'm hoping that's in this book because I want more Shadesmar.
Okay.
And then I've written, does he get a spren? Because obviously spren are the reason that you go to Shadesmar.
Are they?
Well, like, I don't know. But everyone that's been there has had a spren.
Okay.
I thought maybe he had a spren. And then I thought of something even more exciting.
Yeah.
And that was an evil spren.
Okay.
Like, a corrupted spren.
Yeah.
And then once I had the whole, like, idea of wanting corrupted spren in my head,
Yeah.
I couldn't get it out. I've now changed my mind on someone having a corrupted spren.
Yes, based on stuff in the text.
I'll get to it. Well, because I do character by character, like, each character, like, hints at it.
Yeah.
So my theory comes up multiple times, so I'll explain it in a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the idea of Adolin, like, feeling a bit left out, not having a spren, and, like, this spren coming up to him being like, hey, I'll be your spren, you can be a radiant too, but it being, like, corrupted.
Okay.
Like, that really interested me.
By any chance,
It hasn't happened yet.
Does this also factor into the mystery of... We'll get to Odium, the champion stuff.
Yeah.
But by any chance, does this also factor into your Odium's Champions theories?
Yes.
Cool.
I think that's in the Dalinar section, maybe.
Shall we just get started on the part 1 stuff? Because...
Oh yeah, that's in the Dalinar section.
Okay, good. Do you start with Dalinar?
I was going to start with Dalinar because it's Dalinar's book.
Yeah.
And normally the person whose book it is, I like to start with them.
Yeah.
But after writing the notes for Dalinar, I started writing the notes for the other characters. And I realised that there's some stuff in Shallan's chapters that are quite important to talk about before Dalinar's section.
Cool.
Because otherwise, like, it kind of felt a bit disjointed.
Yeah.
So I'm going with Shallan first.
Cool, let's do Shallan first.
So Shallan. Shallan is she's sitting outside, like, the main tower. Yes. She's trying to draw it. But, like, she can't draw it properly. It keeps going strange?
Yes.
I think that's the only way that you can describe it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good way of describing it, yeah.
And Patton's with her. And Patton's like, I can understand why you hate me, Shallan. And she's like, I don't hate you. I hate your blade. And he's like,
oh, okay.
Okay, I don't understand, but okay. And then a scout from Dalinar arrives, inviting her to a meeting. And she's like, why? Like, I'm no one. Let me continue being no one. But she goes. And Dalinar is struggling to unite the world leaders. Yeah. And he asks her what her opinion is. Yeah. And everyone in the room, so it's like Navani, it's Kaladin, it's Adolin. Yeah. Everyone, like, and there's,
it's
like...
not Kaladin, because Kaladin's not there
No. No, Kaladin is still off being Kaladin. Yeah. Is he? Yeah.
Kaladin's off being Kaladin.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, he's off doing exactly what you'd expect Kaladin to be doing in any situation.
I just assumed that all the key players were there. Yeah. So they all, like, turn to look at Shallan, and Shallan's like... I know nothing. Yeah. Why would anybody ever think that I'm important? Like, Shallan is nothing.
Yeah. She's just some backcountry girl. She literally has never left her house until a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's like, just let me continue sitting quietly in the corner drawing, please. So Shallan is staring up at this big, like, map of Roshar on the wall. Okay. And Dalinar had just been talking about it in the meeting. Yeah. Saying how it would be cool to have a map where he could see from the Stormfather's point of view. Yeah. Because the Stormfather, you can see the world better from that angle.
He has, like, a live view.
Yeah. Yeah. And as he's walking past her, he brushes against her. Yeah. And suddenly this, like, gigantic, like, 3D map appears. Like, big illusion.
It's
so cool.
I love that moment where it's just kind of like she feels like a tugging from him, so she's like, okay, let's lean into it, and then it just boom, giant map, and it's like, cool, this is going to be helpful. Yeah, it's very cool.
So yeah, I was trying to work that one out. I think that's in my notes for part 2. Okay, so I'm not going to go any further into that. Yeah, but I have got a theory about that I'm going to bring up in another video. Yeah. But I didn't come up with that in this book, so it'd feel weird to talk about it. Yeah. Right now. So they've decided to focus on Azir. Yeah. Yakoved. Yeah. Thaylenah. Yeah.
And I think they send messengers to Shinovar? They're kind of like, let's see what the Shin feel
Well,
like.
they send messengers to everyone because obviously they want everyone.
Yeah.
But they focus on countries at the opposite sides of the world with oath gates.
Yes.
So that at least they can transport people across the world
very quickly. That makes sense.
And then a messenger comes in to tell them that another murder has occurred.
Oh, yes.
So the book starts off with them finding Sadeas's body.
Yeah.
And there being like a minor fight between like Bridge 4 and Sadeas's guards as to who killed him.
Yeah.
Adolin gets assigned the task of finding out who the murderer was. Which, when you're the murderer, that's quite a...
I mean, he's like great, but also, man...
Who do I frame? So then they found another body. So they rushed to go and check it out. And the person's been murdered in the same way. Like the exact same way.
The knife to the eye.
They're found in the exact same position. So people are like, cool, so it must be the same murderer.
Yeah.
And that's where that one is at the moment.
Yep.
So then Shallan goes back to her room. She becomes Veil. And she's practicing doing different voices. Because she knows that she can change her voice using her powers. But she hasn't been able to do it yet, so she's practicing.
Yeah.
And
I say, because illumination, her illusions can be both visual and auditory as well.
Yeah. So as she's doing that, someone knocks on the door. So she quickly drops the illusion of Veil and is like, come in, because she thinks it's Paloma with some food for her because she missed dinner.
Yeah.
And she turns around and Adolin's walking into her room.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh. She's in her night dress that's very see-through.
Safe hand just flapping
safe hand
about.
So she quickly hides her safe hand and she's like, get out! And he's like, you invited me in. And she's like, I thought you would be someone else. He's like, I brought food for you and books.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, so she thinks it's Paloma because they knock with one hand because he was carrying food, which is hilarious because that means men on Roshar, or at least in Voron Society, normally knock with both hands.
Amazing. So she sends him back out so that she can make herself decent.
Yeah.
And they're bantering and like flirting while she's doing so. And she's calling him feminine for knocking with one hand.
Yeah.
And they're laughing. And then when she's decent, she's got her safe hand covered.
Yes.
So he comes in and he's like, I heard you missed dinner, so I brought you food. So they set up a little picnic on the floor because her room has no furniture in. Like she's got a couple of blankets to sleep on, and that's about it.
She's got a bed, I think. Pretty sure.
At this point, she didn't.
Oh, did she know? Literally nothing. Fair enough.
Like I think she's got a table, a chair, and like some blankets. Like it's a very sparse room.
Yeah.
And then he's like, is this your bedroom? And she's like, well, it's my everything room. And he's like, we're alone in your bedroom. Should we maybe call a chaperone in? And she's like, oh, it's cool. Patton's my chaperone. So Patton comes out and Adolin properly meets Patton. He knows of Patton.
Oh, but
he's never met Patton.
Yeah.
And she's like, right, Patton, you're my chaperone. And Patton's like, what's a chaperone? And she's like, my chaperone doesn't know what a chaperone is.
Yeah.
This might not be the best idea. And she's like, oh, just make sure we don't do anything inappropriate. And he's like, okay. So he starts to think about what is and is not appropriate. And they're having a little bit of a conversation. Adolin shows her some books that he brought for her that he thinks she might like.
Yeah.
And then Patton just shouts out, no mating!
He's like, that's what you meant by inappropriate. No mating.
And then she's like, well, this is awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Adolin makes her try some of his like super spicy man food.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to, but she does. And she's like, well, didn't think I'd like it. Clearly don't like it.
Yeah.
And they're having a bit of a banter, having a bit of a mess around. And then Adolin tells her that he's worried about their courtship. And she's like, oh, I thought we were getting on well. What's
the problem?
What's the problem? He's like, oh, I just don't want to mess it up. And she's like, oh, Adolin.
Yeah.
My last boyfriend was someone that was just trying to get close to me to murder Jasnah. I think we're good.
Yeah.
And then they end up kissing. So Patton shouts at them to stop mating.
So Patton is on point in that scene. That is. And
then Adolin is like, oh, I've not spoken to you about it yet, but you have a shard blade. And she's like, yeah.
So?
And she's like, great, he's gonna be all judgy and not want his woman to have a blade.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you've never been trained in a blade, so can I train you?
Yeah.
So he excitedly runs off to grab equipment to train her with.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I don't want to use a blade. The last time I used the blade, I killed my mum.
Yeah.
Like,
this is not
Shallan can't use the blade, but I can create someone that can use the blade.
Yes.
So she creates Radiant, who pretty much looks like Shallan, but is very practical.
Yes.
And very, like, no nonsense, and I fight with a blade, and... like,
it's just Shallan, but more proper and more...
like, I'd say it's Shallan, but without emotional attachment.
I think she specifically is like, I basically just made me, but slightly more like Jasnah.
Yeah.
Like...
so no emotional attachment.
Yeah, so no emotional attachments.
So they're then practicing how to use the shard blades together, and it's really cute.
It's very cute.
So then Adolin leaves, and she's like, good, he's finally gone, I can be Vale.
Yeah.
So she dresses up as Vale, and she goes out to the market area so that she can start researching the murders.
Yeah.
So she goes to just a tavern. She's in there drinking.
Yeah.
She gets stupidly drunk. She pretty much wants to, because Vale is such a hard, like, no-nonsense character.
Yeah.
She wants to get Vale to a point where Vale can just down a drink and, like, not really be bothered by it.
Yeah.
So that's what she's practicing. And she's talking to a guy at the bar who's, like, chatting her up a bit.
Oh, yeah.
And he tells her that she asks him if there's been any murders in the area. And he tells her that someone was murdered outside one of the other taverns, like the really shady one.
Yeah.
And she's like, my kind of place.
Yeah.
So she gets up to go there. She falls over because she's drunk. She accidentally breathes in a bit of stormlight, and it immediately, like... clears it away.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can drink as much as I want and not get drunk.
Yeah.
Perfect. So she then goes to the other tavern, and she walks right up to the bar, demands the strongest thing they've got.
Which is horny to white.
Yeah, the guy laughs at her, and he's like, horny to white, and she's like, yes, I will drink that. He's like, no one can drink that, but it will be funny to watch.
Yeah.
So she downs a drink, asks for another one, downs that, insists he leaves the whole jar.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone's like,
the hell woman?
She's crazy.
Yeah.
So she's drinking that, and as she looks around the bar, she asks about the murders.
Yeah.
And she gets pointed to a group of people, like, sitting in a little booth, like, at the back of the tavern.
Yeah.
So she goes over and sits with them, and they're like, that's our friend's seat. Go away.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll sit here till he gets back.
Yeah.
And then he gets back. It's a big... Horn-eater.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what the actual title was.
Good lucky.
And he gets back, and he's like, this is my seat. And she's like, doesn't have your name in it.
Yeah.
So he picks her up and, like, throws her out the seat because he's, like, twice her size.
Yep.
So she goes back, she puts her hand on his hand, she stabs him through the hand.
Yeah.
And she's like, mine now.
Yeah.
So then she earns the seat.
Yep.
And as she's sitting there, she's, like, carving something into the table. And the others are like...
what are you doing?
What's going on here?
Yeah.
She's like, the murders, tell me about them. And they're like, no. And then she's like, I'm a Ghostblood. And, like, shows that she's like, dug the symbol in.
Yeah.
And they then tell her about the murder.
Yeah.
It's a guy who... he was a bit abusive when he was drinking. and a bit is a very much an understatement.
Yeah.
Beard had too much to drink and he murdered his wife.
Hmm.
And they threw him over the ledge.
Yeah.
To like get rid of him.
Yeah, I can't remember what they call it. They just call it like the tower's justice or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So they're like, it's been dealt with.
Yeah.
There's no more murder. It's cool. And she's like, oh, okay. So she goes to leave. And when they think she's gone, they're like, oh, thank goodness she didn't ask about the other murder. So Shallan immediately goes back and she's like, other murder?
Yeah.
They're like,
They're like, damn.
Well, the guy claims not to have done it, but it was a woman that was
similar.
Identical to his wife. She was a barmaid at the tavern.
Yeah.
And she was found murdered
in the
exact
same way. Yeah.
So it must have been him. And then Shallan's like, okay, this is a bit strange. We've now got 4 murders that happened in pairs, a couple of days between each one, and the victim matched the first one. And she's like, something's not right about this.
Yeah.
So she goes back home, goes to sleep.
Yeah.
Gets woken up the next afternoon by Adolin because she is very hungover.
Yeah.
He's like, so you've drunk all of this horny
white.
She tells him that she was up late investigating the murders. He's like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm going to go meet Sadeas' wife, but I don't want to go alone. Can you come with me?
Yeah.
Because she's terrifying. And Shallan's like, cool, yeah, I just need a minute to get ready. And he's like, well, we're already late.
Yeah.
So they go to Sadeas' wife.
Yeah.
Because Adolin's obviously investigating the murder.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want anything to do with them. She's like, your dad killed him. We all know it.
Yeah.
What are you doing wasting my time?
Yeah.
And Adolin quite rightly points out, if Dalinar wanted him dead,
he would have done it a long time ago, and he would do it openly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, fine, you can stay. Shallan, go and make us some teas. Shallan's like,
oh, yes.
Fine. So she went to follow him because her guard was Moray's.
Yes.
And she's like, yo, what you doing here?
What you doing here, bruv? You having a good time?
And he's like, just something I like to do in my spare time. Of course.
Yeah, as you do.
He's like, notice that you're quite happy to throw our symbol around, are you?
Mm-hmm. She's like, I heard about that.
And she's like, well, I'm not really one of you. He's like, well, you're throwing our symbol around, so you must be. And she's like, look, I'm not going to kill anyone for you. Like, you killed Jasnah. I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, at the moment, the task that we want you to do is something that you're already doing.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. And she's like, what? And they're like, we just want you to investigate the darkness in the tower. Like, something's not right here. We already know that you're looking into it. We just want you to deal with it for us. So she goes back to Adolin with 2 cups of tea to make quite a point to Sadeas' wife that she's not going to be fetching her tea anytime soon.
Yeah.
And they are talking. And then as they're leaving, Sadeas' wife is like, oh, any information you gather, can you pass it along to my... Is it Highprince of Information? So she says something with a fancy title that's sort of like her investigator for the crime of her husband, the death of her husband, the crime of Sadeas.
The crime that is Sadeas.
So Aiden is like, fine, who is it? And she's like, it's Amaram!
Bum.
So Shallan is then exploring the tower.
Yeah.
And she comes across what used to be an auditorium.
Yes.
And Patton, and she's like, oh, this is an auditorium. People have come here to watch plays being performed.
Yeah.
And Patton's like, what's that?
Yeah.
So she shows him.
Yeah, she shows him what a play looks like.
She makes this amazing illumination of a childhood story of hers.
Yes.
About a young girl who is curious as to why there's a wall around the city.
Yeah.
So she asks a couple of different people, and everyone's just like, oh,
She's
it's just always been there.
Yeah.
So she decides to climb it, and when she gets to the top...
When she gets to the top, she discovers stairs on the other side, because the wall wasn't keeping the things out, it was keeping them in.
Yeah.
And I believe this version of the story ends with the girl coming back down. Or does it just end there?
It ends there.
Okay, so it ends there, yeah.
Because along with the play...
She makes like an illusion as well.
Yeah, she also imagines an audience of like black shadowy figures.
Yeah.
And then when she drops the illusion of the audience, one of the figures remains.
Welcome to Brandon's horror novel.
And so she runs after it.
Yep.
And she's chasing after this thing.
Yep.
And it slips out through the tiny little crack in the wall.
Yeah.
I had a genuine fear of like...
Oh, you hate cracks, don't you?
Like, sort of like crack shapes with like people squeezing through like tight spaces.
Yeah.
I have a genuine fear of that.
Yes.
So this was not fun.
Yes.
And the illustration that went with it, really not fun.
Oh, it was the horse spiral, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, was it not?
There is an illustration of like
the
something fitting through this tiny crack.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Screw that.
Yeah. It's probably the only illusion that I've like not wanted to look at. I've just quickly like noped past it.
Yeah.
So she realizes that it's gone out into the main market.
Yeah.
So she runs through the nearest doorway, follows it into the market, and she hears like a kerfuffle.
Yeah.
So she goes up to that. She's like, yo, I was looking for like a strange man all in black, and Rock is there.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, but I've just been stabbed in the hand.
Yes. Yeah. He's like, I've not seen any coats, but I have seen a knife in my hand. Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So at this point she realizes that she's lost whatever it was that was chasing her.
Yeah.
But a couple of days before, she had been in a tavern and she had stabbed a horn eater through the hand.
Yeah.
And now it's like exactly the same.
When you first read this, what theories did you have for what that black shape was?
So my first one, before like midway through that, when she dropped the illusion and there was just a strange man in black sitting in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
My first thought was Hoyd.
Yeah.
Because Hoyd's picture was at the front of the chapter, so I was like, when does he turn up?
Yeah.
And that seems like quite a Hoydy thing to do.
To be hanging out, yeah.
But then when it tried to fit through the tiny gap and it was like rearranging its shape, I was like, okay, it's some kind of spren.
Yeah.
And then that led me to the whole corrupt spren.
That's what kind of sparked
thing.
off your corrupt spren theory, wasn't it? Yeah.
Like that's where I was like, okay, so that spren wasn't right. I didn't think it was a spren of Odian.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the Odian spren are yellow and like glowy.
There's a few different types, and that one of them is yellow, yeah.
So at that point I was quite convinced that it was some kind of like corrupted spren.
Yeah.
At which point I was like, okay, if there's corrupted spren, can they attach to people?
Yes, can they bond as well? You know,
yeah,
it's a good assumption to make.
So I wanted Adolin, but I changed. To something else.
Yes,
that I will cover in a moment.
I'll say there was so back when we were getting these preview chapters.
Yeah.
Just in case people didn't know this, I used to do a video series when we got these. I did one a week. Called Walking to Era Theory, where we talk about the theories. And I remember there was a big lot of people who thought it might have been a conjurer.
Yeah.
Like maybe a conjurer that like gone crazy, a bit like Palm had. Or something like that. And it was like, oh, what is it? I think like Evil Spren was like pretty big as well. But I liked the contra theory as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So then I was trying to work out the Hoyd in this chapter. So what I came back to was obviously this is a play based on an old story from a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So at that point, I assume that Hoyd would be in the story.
Yes, so the reason you think Hoyd is in this chapter is because he was on the chapter arch.
I assume that obviously it's a story that's been told over time and like details change.
Yeah.
So I figured that maybe it wasn't about a girl. It was about like a young boy.
Yeah.
He just happened to have like long white hair, so people have assumed it was a girl.
Yeah, there's the long white hair and the 2 red scarves are like the important descriptors of the character.
Yeah. So I figured that maybe as a small child he got sent to this city as like part of his sort of curse of always having to be in the right place to help.
Yes.
I thought that he had maybe just been like transported to this place and he was like, why is there a wall?
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, it's just always been there. And like he's going around trying to work out what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my theory on the play.
I was going to say, Hoyd being the play being about Hoyd is definitely a frequent theory that is seen and is, I don't want to say likely, but it's probably likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll find out a little bit more about that story later on.
So whilst she was outside in the outside area and like Rock had been stabbed.
Yeah.
Eshonai?
Eshonai, yeah.
Eshonai.
Eshonai.
Words. She approaches Shallan.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, I was in the tavern the other night in that group. Can I come and be part of the Ghostbloods? I really want to be part of the Ghostbloods. And Shallan's like, no, go away.
Yeah.
So then Shallan goes to the next Radiance meeting. And she's sitting in the corner doodling. And she's sketching the victims of like the murders and attacks. And the second people to sort of like see if there's anything going on. Yeah. And she notices that every time that there's an incident, it follows an act of violence, but the victim always looks identical. Yes. To the
original victim. Yeah.
So she's investigating that, and Sadeas' wife walks in with Amaram.
Yeah.
And she's like, right, the heir to our kingdom is too young, so gonna appoint Sadeas as the next Prince Amaram.
He's the Highprince Amaram now. Highprince Sadeas.
Way round.
Yeah, sorry, he's Highprince Sadeas now, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, cool. Kaladin will like that.
Shallan, while she's sketching, Malta,
yes,
walks up to her and they're having a chat. As I said, this is hard because like so many characters, like their stories mash.
Yeah.
But essentially, Taravangian has arrived in his party as a Radiant. Her name is Malata. She is a dust bringer.
Yes, she is.
And every now and then she comes along to the Radiance meetings when she can be bothered.
Yeah.
And she's talking to Shallan, and she thinks that Desolation is made up and they're wasting their time.
Oh, okay.
And like, she just thinks this whole thing is quite pointless and boring.
Yeah.
So I think at this point you're supposed to think that the strange spren running around is hers.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think it was. Like, I felt like that incident being so close to you then, like, meeting Malata properly.
You think that Brennan was trying to make you put her...
Yeah.
Okay.
But I thought that was a bit too obvious.
Yeah.
So I didn't think that.
Yeah.
So the announcement is made about Amaram now being Sadeas.
Yeah.
Dalinar accepts it because Dalinar is honourable.
Yeah.
Adolin gets angry and has to be sent out of the room to go and cool down. So Shallan follows him. Obviously, moral support, and doesn't particularly want to be in the meeting anyway, so it's a great excuse to leave.
Yeah.
And he's furious because how can Amaram be put in such a position after everything he's done.
Yeah.
He's really angry that obviously poor Kaladin, when Kaladin comes back, is going to have to find out about this.
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, lots of people hate Amaram. And then she tells him that Amaram murdered her brother. And then Adolin's like, Shallan, he got those plates and blade from Kaladin.
Because Kaladin killed that Shardbearer, not Amaram.
And Shallan's like, la la la, I'm not listening.
Shallan kind of goes, oh.
Repress.
Anyway.
Repress.
Yeah, repress. That definitely won't come back.
She, in talking to Adolin tells her that she should start putting her soldiers to use. Because her soldiers, since arriving at the tower, she's just let them do what they want. And Adolin says, well, you know, they're soldiers. They want to be doing stuff to help you. You know, they want to be on your team. So obviously she's like, I don't need them. Like, I'm a Radiant. I can handle myself.
Yeah.
So she decides that she's going to use them to help her spy. So she sets them up in different taverns across town, lets them get quite drunk, like watch the area, and any violent crimes to report to her. Yeah. And then they're looking out for the black spren to see if it's going to copy any crimes. Yes. And a few days before, someone had been stabbed. I think they maybe hit with a bottle. Yes. Someone had been killed in a bar fight. Yeah. And the murderer had been hung to death. Yeah. So she's convinced that by hanging out in taverns, they'll find
someone who will get hit in the head with a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what her guys are currently out looking for. She then hears some screams outside, so she like runs off. Yeah. And her guys are like, there's someone hanging. Yes. We saw the spren jump off the building and run that way. Yeah. So she's chasing it across the market. Yeah. And she manages to catch up with it at the tower. She like chases it through the tower. Yeah. And then it goes through this tiny little like crack. Yeah. So why?
Yeah, more tiny cracks. Does she immediately just chop the wall down?
Or does she looks through, realizes that there's a room hidden behind there. Yeah. And she's like, how do we get in? Yeah. So she sends the guards off to go and collect Adolin. Yeah. And she hacks through the wall with her shard blade. Yeah. But I think she turns into Radiant first, hacks the wall with her shard blade. Yeah. And then she's she's in this room where it's essentially just a gigantic black pit with a stairway going down it. Yeah. And she's like, cool. Oh, Adolin's on his way and I'm Vale. Yeah. So she puts the Shallan illusion over the top. Yes. And then Adolin arrives, who had been practicing with some of the Bridge 4 crew. Yeah. So he brought them along with him. Yeah, like Renarin's with them. And and luckily him and Renarin had been practicing in their shard armor, so they're already equipped. So they're all good. And she's like, cool, there's this big pit, and the murderer just went down there. Yeah. He's like, okay, so we've got to...
Let's go down into this big pit.
Go down. So they go down into this big pit, and there's a long corridor. There's there's a room either side, and the corridor keeps going, and it's black. So Adolin realizes that he can use his shard blade to get in. She's angry because she doesn't want to damage this like ancient room. Yes. And like the walls are covered with like beautiful herald paintings.
Yeah, there's murals of all the spren.
Yeah. There's like it's a beautiful section. But he is like, well, we either let the murderer go or we break a lock. Yeah. So she reluctantly lets him like start trying to break down one of the doors. Looks over and Renarin is staring out into the
down the hallway.
Darkness down the hallway.
Yeah. And the darkness is moving.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So the first room they discover is just full of like debris of like books that have disintegrated over time.
Yeah.
So obviously it's been thousands of years. And she's like, oh, those books that Jasnah was looking for are now all lost.
They are dust.
And they go out and Adolin's about to break into the second room when they look down and they realise that Renarin has started walking down the corridor.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's follow him.
Yeah, they're like, Renarin, hold up.
So they start following Renarin down the corridor and they run into a big tar spren that's like covering the walls.
Yeah.
And like it's staring at them.
Yeah.
And it starts to create like tar people.
Monsters, things, yeah.
They're like, okay.
Yes.
So they are like trying to work out what's gonna happen.
Going on, yeah.
And they get into a formation and there's like a fight between like this weird spren and them.
Yeah.
And they have no idea
what they're going to do about the big spren. Yeah.
Because like every time they kill one, it makes more. And like it's starting to spread down the corridor.
Yeah, surround them and stuff.
Yeah. And it's
horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It is scary and you're like, this is crazy.
And Shallan sort of starts to understand this thing.
Yeah.
She realizes that it's an Unmade that is trying to mimic humans.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a fascination with like death and like destruction.
Yeah.
Which is why it's copying the murders and attacks.
It's trying to like understand people through their deaths, basically.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible way of going about it.
Yeah. But she realizes that the creature hasn't attempted to make her.
Yeah.
It's made everyone else, but it hasn't attempted her. And any time that she goes near it, it sort of like moves away from her.
Yeah.
So she starts moving towards it and it's moving away.
Yeah.
So she's like, right, let's push it down the corridor.
Yeah.
So she manages to get it all the way down the end of the corridor and they see it like wrapped around this big like...
crystal pillar.
Well, we don't know it's crystal yet.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Wrapped around this big pillar at the end of the corridor.
Yeah.
And she's like, right, you guys hack me away to get to it.
Yeah.
And I will touch it when we get there.
I'm going to touch it. I want to poke it.
I want to lick it.
I want to lick it.
So that's what they do. Adolin and Renarin obviously take the lead because they're in shard play. The rest of Bridge 4 sort of like surround so they can't be surrounded by the thing. They hack a way into the centre and Shallan puts a naked hand
she touches it with her
against
safe hand.
it. So she's touching it and it starts like pressing against her bond with Pattern.
Yes.
And it's trying to break her bond with Pattern and it's trying to make its own bond with her.
Yes.
And she manages to convince it that she's stronger than it.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen. So it gets scared and it like flees
and it
through
runs
a
away.
tiny like little...
It goes through one of the exit tunnels.
Yeah. And she collapses.
Yeah.
So after it runs away...
Yeah.
The Adolin's like, right, we'll put guards down here, make sure it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And Shallan's like, it's not going to come back. Like, it's too scared, it's not coming back. And then Bridge 4 are like, we should probably have guards here anyway. And they look and they realise it was wrapped around this gigantic tower of like crystals. It's like all different like gems fused together.
Yeah, all different shapes and sizes and colours, and it's like cool.
Yeah. So that was our first Unmade.
Yes. What did you think of your first Unmade, Lucy?
They are fascinating.
Yeah.
At this point, I was sort of wondering how many there were.
Okay.
And whether they all like do something different.
Okay.
And how many we're going to get to meet.
Cool.
So I was quite excited that like that. It didn't feel like that was the end of that.
Yes. Yeah.
I felt like that one was either going to come back with its friends.
Yeah.
Or we were going to meet some friends.
Yes. So did you work out that you have met those things before? The spren it was leaking that were copying people. We've met them before. So do you remember the Starfall vision that Dalinar has, where they have to fight the dogs that are like the Midnight Essences is what they call them.
Oh yeah.
Yes, they fight the Midnight Essences. So the Midnight Essences, that's what those things were.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that Unmade creates Midnight Essences, and they do something.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really into that.
Yeah. Brandon's favorite type of horror is like unknowable Lovecraftian style horror.
Yeah.
And I think he does it very well, and I think this was a very good introduction to the Unmade, who are basically a bunch of Lovecraftian horrors on Roshar.
Yeah. I was quite interested in the whole... It was trying to break Shallan's bond with Patton.
Yes.
That Shallan was strong enough to fight it.
Yeah.
There was another Radiant in the room.
Yeah.
That also interacted with it.
Okay.
That is not quite as strong as Shallan.
Renarin, yeah.
So at that point, I was convinced that Renarin's...
Yeah.
Well, I was already convinced that...
Yeah.
Corruption Spren were a thing.
Yeah.
I was already convinced that Renarin had one.
Okay.
But at that point, I was like...
Did Renarin bond that Unmade, and that's why he ran away? Okay. Okay, interesting.
Because I'm convinced that he's got a corruption Spren. Like, I'm convinced his Spren is corrupted.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Unmade trying to break the bond is probably the scariest thing it does.
Yeah.
Like, just the fact that it tries to, it's like, what does that mean? What is it trying to do?
Well, it wants to bond with a human.
It wants to know people.
And then Shallan is back in... Sabarial's rooms, recuperating. When Adolin runs in, and he's like, "Have you heard the good news?" And she's like, Kaladin's back. I'll stare at him later.
Yeah.
And Adolin's like, "No, Jasnah's back."
Yeah.
And then Jasnah walks in.
Woo!
And I was right about her not being dead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you already know this from the end of
I know.
But yeah.
But I'm still excited about it. I get more Jasnah.
Jasnah is exciting, yes.
Yeah, love Jasnah.
Everyone loves Jasnah.
So then we get to the man of the book, Dalinar.
Yes. We're going to do Dalinar next because we're done Shallan, who's in Irithyru, so we're just going to stay in Irithyru for a bit. What's Dalinar up to then, Lucy? The man of the hour.
So they'd found Sadeas' body, and then Dalinar is now bonded to the Stormfather, so he can just visit the visions whenever he wants.
Yes.
And he can control them himself. So he goes to his first vision, and rather than staying where he is, he goes for a walk. He goes exploring, and he sees some rubbles with some claw gauge marks in them. Yeah. I don't think they're claw marks.
Okay.
I don't think that Kholinar falls to the Everstorm.
Okay.
I think it's something else.
So this is serious. This is the vision where it's him and Tanavast standing looking over Kholinar. Yeah. And instead of staying at the top of the rock as the world falls away, he goes and explores Kholinar a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm convinced that, like, maybe the Radiants came and attacked it with, like, shard blades. Yeah. Because they can cut through rock.
Yes. Yeah. Shard blades cut through rock easy, like butter.
So I think that the Radiants, like, turned on him. Yeah. And, like, I don't know.
I was going to say, so do you think that vision is a vision of the past or a vision of the future? Yeah. Right. You've not even considered that.
Well, no. I think it's one of the future. Mm-hmm. The thing that throws it is the guy that he's with.
Tanavast.
Because obviously Tanavast is from the past.
Yeah, but Tanavast left these messages. He created these messages. Yeah. So if he could create a message of the future and then put himself there talking to whoever sees that vision.
But no, I'm quite sure that it is the future. Okay. And I have a feeling that, like,
the Radiants are going to turn on them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that because there's something going on
Yeah.
with whatever the pacts are.
You got the Oath Pact.
Yeah.
You got the Recreants, which is the day that the Radiants turned away from everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one.
Yeah, the Recreants. They have the Recreants.
Recreants. I think that there is a lot to that the Stormfather's not told Dalinar.
Yes.
I'll talk about it some more in a minute.
As I say, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, we are massively. But I think that there is something that they're going to ask the Radiants to do, which is too far. Like, it's a step too far. And that's what caused the Radiants to step down.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that something similar is going to happen. And the Radiants are going to attack the city.
Okay, interesting.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good theory.
I have a theory that I don't know if I go into in this part or in part 2.
Yeah.
But, like, I'll get to it.
Cool.
So he's in the vision, and he is quite angry about the fact that the other monarchs won't support him. Like, no one really seems convinced by him.
Yeah.
And so he's talking to the Stormfather in his head. And he, like, the vision is ending.
Yeah.
Because the vision ends with, like,
the world falling away.
The world falling away. And normally that's the point where he leaves the vision. But he asks the Stormfather if he can stay because he wants to see what happens.
Yeah.
And as the world is falling away, he sees a figure surrounded by golden light.
Yeah.
With familiar eyes and 9 shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So... right.
Okay. I've got a theory. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, good.
So my current working theory is that is Renarin.
Ooh.
Because, again, I'm convinced he's got a corrupt spren.
Yeah.
And if he's already got one of the Unmade linked to him, I think maybe over the course of the books he gets all 9 Unmade bonded to him, and that's why he's got 9 shadows.
Okay.
That's why the eyes are familiar to Dalinar, because they're his son's eyes.
It makes sense. So you reckon Renarin's going to go around playing Pokemon with all the Unmade?
And I think that he's going to end up being Odiums Champion.
Okay. I like that theory.
Thank you, because that's my current.
Oh, and do you know what I've just realised
theory.
that works with? You know how you think Adolin's the one that wrote the epigraphs? And didn't the epigraphs mention having to kill someone that they loved close to them?
Oh no, he's going to kill Dalinar.
Oh, you reckon he's going to kill Dalinar? Ooh, that's spicy.
Either that.
Yeah.
Or in the first book, you've got those, like, I don't know what epigraphs they were, but like the ones that didn't really make sense. They were just like
the
random
death rattles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a death rattle about a baby with a knife to its throat.
Yes.
I think he's got to kill his own child.
You think he's going to kill his own child? Damn, Lucy.
See, it's either that or he kills Shallan. And I can understand wanting to kill Shallan. At the moment, we've got too many characters that are killing their family members.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
So 2 days later, their Everstorm returns, and Stormfather tells Dalinar that the Everstorm's a new feature.
Yeah. It's never been part of Desolations before.
Yeah. So he sees visions of the destruction, and the enemy in the storm is watching them. Yeah. Navani's with him, and she touches his cheek with her naked safe hand.
Ooh. Scandalous.
Very. And she tries to take things further than a kiss. And Dalinar is like, "No, woman, I'm saving myself." And he's like, "This is a taboo. We can't do this." And she's like, "Please, Dalinar, you know."
Yeah.
But he's like, "No, I'm doing this properly. Yeah. We will get married first." But none of the Ardents will
Marry.
marry him and Navani because it's a taboo.
Yeah.
Because they're technically related.
They're technically but siblings, yeah.
So he's asked all of the Ardents that they know. Every single one has refused him. But he really wants Navani.
He really wants Navani. He really needs to marry Navani.
So he decides, well...
Why don't we just go above the Ardent's head?
Yeah. So they asked the Stormfather to marry them.
Yeah, which is adorable.
And he is thinking about Evie.
Evie, yeah.
Well, I don't know her name yet.
You don't know her name yet.
But he's thinking about his old wife.
Yeah.
And he can remember feeling hatred and thrilled on the day of her death.
Ooh.
Thank you. I also thought that was a bit spicy.
Yeah.
So I was trying to work out why he would have those feelings. So my first thought was, did he kill her?
Okay.
But I feel like with last book's epilogues being Shallan, and Shallan killed her dad and
the
her
flashbacks.
mum.
The flashbacks, yeah.
I felt like that was a bit too...
Obvious?
Too samey.
Okay.
So it has to be something different. So I thought maybe like on the day she died, was he like fighting in a battle? Because when he fights, he talks about
the thrill.
So that would be the thrill that he was experiencing.
Okay.
And the hatred would have been towards his enemy.
Okay.
So like I thought maybe that was where the feelings were.
Yeah.
I don't think the feelings specifically are about her death. I think they just are part of the day.
Yeah.
But I haven't got any further in that one.
Cool.
I have a theory in another part.
Yeah.
But that's where I left part 1.
Yeah.
So Navani is talking about his old wife.
Yeah.
And that's where he remembers those feelings. And then he admits to her that he can't actually remember anything about his old wife.
Yeah.
And they get married by the Stormfather.
Yeah.
And Elhokar is not pleased about it.
No.
But he attends and he like sulks in the corner. He reluctantly gives his blessing.
Yeah.
Adolin and Renarin are very excited about the wedding. And they get married. Kadash is there.
Yes.
So they swear an oath of loyalty to each other.
Yeah.
And the wedding is quite a lovely, emotional wedding.
Yeah.
Mate, you gonna marry her? Yep. You gonna marry him?
Yep.
Right, your oaths are spoken. You're married.
You're married. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So romantic. Navani's there all dressed in a beautiful wedding dress.
Yeah.
Dalinar's just turned up in whatever shirt he could
he just was
find.
He's like, I like this coat. This is my nicest military coat.
I don't think he even put that much effort
Oh,
in,
fair
to be honest.
enough, yeah.
So they're now married. Everyone's gone off to celebrate.
Yeah.
Dalinar's alone with Kadash.
Yeah.
And Kadash is like, the Ardents aren't gonna be happy about this.
And he's like, so what? Your god himself did it, so, you know.
And he's like, well, you guys wouldn't marry us. We wanted to be married.
You know, we found a way.
If honor has said it's okay, then it's okay. And then Kadash reminds him that he was there on that day.
Yes.
So again, I thought that day maybe had something to do with his wife.
Yes.
Like maybe they'd been out on the battlefield and they like came back and found her or something.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. But like, I didn't like the use of that day.
Yes.
So then he gets through the festivities as quickly as he can.
Yeah.
And him and Navani make their excuses to leave as early as they can.
As quickly as possible.
And then the next chapter we meet
And then
him.
the next chapter starts.
He invites the Emperor of Azir.
Yeah.
to come and visit. And he's like, oh, congratulations. And Dalinar's like, that's not really an answer to my question. And so he asks him a couple of other questions, but he's being really vague in response.
Yeah.
And then they say that the Voidbringers didn't attack their lands.
Yeah.
So Dalinar's like, oh, that's strange.
That's nice for you.
And then they mention that they're in negotiation.
Yeah.
With the Voidbringers.
Yes.
Which Dalinar is not too impressed with.
He's like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. And he's like, guys, if you just work your portal, we can come and visit, or you can come and visit us. And they're like, oh, our portal's broken.
And then they give him...
tried, it just won't turn on.
And he's like, where's your evidence? And then they provide like a document that says, it's broken, signed Azir.
Yeah.
And he's like, thanks, Azir.
So that communication ends quite abruptly.
Yeah.
But that's okay because Queen Fen makes contact from Thaylenah.
Yes.
And she says that the Voidbringers stole her ships.
Yep.
And her city was hit quite strongly by
the
Everstorm.
Yeah.
Because her city isn't built to withstand the winds.
I mean, none of them are, but she got it especially bad.
Yeah. Well, normally when there's a normal high storm, it doesn't really hit where she is. Like, the winds aren't very strong.
Yeah.
The Everstorm went right over her town. And it was destroyed.
Yeah.
And she's like, mate, I can't visit you. My city is in ruins.
I need to be here to fix my city.
Like, it's a mess here.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if you open your oath gate, we can come and help.
Yeah.
And she's like, mate, I'm not going to let you into my city.
Yeah.
Like, you're the Blackthorn.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen here?
Yeah, I am not stupid.
Yeah. So he tells her that if she finds any Radiants, let him know and he'll help train them for her.
Yeah.
And, we are trying to be your allies here, so if you need any help, just
let us know.
Give us a call.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
They talk about the other emperors and like kings and stuff, but no one will really respond to him until Azir is on board. Elhokar suggests they don't want to join up with them because they think that they're gonna usurp their thrones.
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, yeah, I can
get
see
why
that.
They think that, yeah.
And then Elhokar tries to abdicate and give the kingdom to Dalinar. Yeah. Because Dalinar's a better king than him. Dalinar's like, no, mate. Yeah. Stop talking. That's not happening.
He's like, shut up now. You are making an ass of yourself.
Yeah. He's like, I am now gonna be the High King of Furu.
So close.
I can't. You keep Kholinar?
Well, Elhokar.
Elhokar. You keep Elhokar, and I'll help you, but I'm not going to take your kingdom.
Yeah.
So he agrees to that, and he says that he wants to get back to Kholinar, because they've not been able to contact Kholinar at all.
For like ages, for a while now.
Yeah, like all the spam reads have stopped working. The Stormfather can't see it when he's passing over. Like, something's not right there. So Dalinar agrees to send Kaladin when Kaladin gets back from family time.
Yeah.
Taravangian then contacts, and he's like, yeah, mate, I'm on board. I'll come and visit.
Yeah.
So Dalinar's like, okay, we've got one. Yeah. We've got the king that is known for not being the brightest spark.
Bit slow,
Yeah, and he's like, well, at least we've got him.
Yeah, it's better than no one.
He says that he's got a radiant, so he can open the gate on his end.
Yeah.
Dalinar has to open it on his end. Mm-hmm. And so they're in contact about that. Yeah. That's great. Next chapter, he's admiring Sev's honor blade, which he now has hidden away somewhere safe. Yeah. And he notices that when he picks it up, it doesn't scream like a shard blade does. So he asks Stormfather about it. And they talk about how they were forged before Spren
became bonded people.
Yeah. So that's why they're not made with Spren.
Yeah,
and they have a big old talk about honor. And
is this the big chapter? Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Cool.
It's not the good one.
The big info dump. The Stormfather info dump.
Yeah,
chapter.
no, this is just a chat about honor and Odium.
Yeah.
Stormfather says that they should pick a champion and offer to fight that way.
Yeah.
And he says it will probably work because Odium has to abide by the rules.
That honor set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really explain very much about it. It's very vague.
Honor. It seems honor somehow trapped Odium in the Rosharan system.
Yeah.
And Odium has to abide by the rules honor set.
Yeah.
And it seems the champion thing is one of those rules.
Cool. So then he goes down to the sparring area.
Yeah.
And he wants to just have a little spar.
Yeah.
None of the Ardents will spar with him. They're all making excuses because they've sort of all decided he's a heretic and they don't really want anything to do with him.
Yeah.
So one of them goes off to find him someone to spar with.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know what? I know that guy over there. He'll fight me.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, mate, I'm going to be wrestling. Dalinar's like, okay.
Let's wrestle.
Let's wrestle.
Yeah.
Takes his top off. Has a wrestling match.
Yeah.
He's tempted to use Stormlight, but decides that would be cheating, so he doesn't. He obviously doesn't win because the other guy is like in his 20s or so. Dalinar's pretty old. Like, although he's good,
he's like in his 50s.
Yeah, like this guy's younger, so he has that advantage going for him. And then the Ardent comes back with the guy for him to Shardblade with, and he's like, no, mate.
Yeah.
I'm good now.
Yeah.
And Navani turns up and is like, what did I marry?
It's like, yeah, I'm into watching these men.
No, she's not too
she's
impressed.
not into it. Okay.
She's like, why did I marry this man?
Yeah.
And she's like, right, Queen Irali?
Oh, the Iriali Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Iriali Queen wants to talk.
Yeah.
Let's go. And he's like, nah, set up your span read.
Right here.
I'm gonna fight this guy. And he like makes...
Not Capsule.
Kadash. He forces Kadash to come and fight.
Yeah.
Like, spar with him. Whilst Navani is having to translate this spam read conversation that's supposed to be private.
Yeah.
In the middle of a training ring full of
people.
Yeah. The Queen of
Iriali.
Iriali.
The country's called Iri, so she's the Iriali Queen.
Okay. So she is not too pleased. She insists that they stole the shard plates from her.
Yeah.
And she will not support them until they return the shard plates.
Yeah.
The shard plates that they have that belong to her are the ones that Adolin currently wears.
Yes.
Navani's like, well, they've got no claim to them because they belong to Evie.
Who gave them to us.
Yeah. And she's like, no, their claim is false. We will not be giving in.
Yeah.
They keep going back and forth about, help us not to return shard plates.
Yeah.
And they're having a back and forth. And she mentions that she's considering forming an alliance with the Voidbringers.
Yes.
Because they've not done anything wrong to them. So why not try and do this peacefully?
Yeah.
So the conversation ends. And Navani is like, well, they belong to Evie. And Dalinar's like, hang on.
I just heard you say that name.
Yeah. And then he
gets a flashback, doesn't he?
No.
No?
And then he becomes so overwhelmed with a memory of her. I think it was like the first memory of her.
Yeah.
That he like collapses.
Yes.
And then in the next chapter, Dalinar's waiting by the Oath Gate and he's thinking about the memories of Evie. And then our good friend Taravangian arrives.
Yeah.
He's on a dumb day.
Yeah, he's not a good day.
No, so he's got a scribe and he's got his radiant with him.
Yeah.
And they're riding the elevator up the tower. And he's like, wow, what's this?
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, it's an elevator. And he's like, how does it work? He's like, a fabrial.
Yeah.
He's like, what's a fabrial?
And it's like,
And Dalinar's like, oh, maybe we haven't got the best ally here. So the scribe is talking on behalf of Taravangian because he's...
Dumb day.
Yeah. So they meet Navani at the top, and he's remembering more memories of Evie.
Yeah.
And Navani's confused because obviously...
He's already had these memories of Evie. Like, why is this...
Well, no. Like, no one else that's visited the Night Mother gets memories back.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? So she says that she's looking into it, see if there's any other cases. And they're talking to Taravangian about how to get the other rulers on board because they've got to unite them all.
Yeah.
And Taravangian's like, just attack. And Dalinar's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it worries me that that's what people assume I'm going to do.
And he's like, yeah, but you're the Blackthorn. He's like, I was the Blackthorn. I'm trying to do something different this time.
Yeah. That's kind of where that chapter finishes. So then the next one is Dalinar having a scribe conversation with someone.
Yeah.
He gets a bit bored and he notices a big hole in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So he picks up his chair and he's like, wonder if I can stick this to the wall.
Yeah.
So he bonds the chair to the wall.
Yeah.
Stands on a chair to look through this hole. And Navani's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he's like, just wanted to see what this hole was. And she's like, it's some sort of air system.
Vent.
Haven't worked out what that is yet.
Yeah.
But that's just a thing. Can you just get down?
Yeah.
He gets annoyed by the conversation that's happening on Spam Read, so he decides that he's gonna go for a walk.
Yeah.
And whilst he's out on his walk, members of Bridge 4 find him. And they're like, Dalinar, you've got to come and see this. He's like, great, another body.
Yeah.
Let's go. So they get out to the courtyard, and they're like, we found it there. And it's Oathbringer sticking out of a plant pot.
Yeah.
And it's like cut the wall as it's like fallen down.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, so whoever killed Sadeas...
Then threw Oathbringer out of a window.
Yeah. Like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
So he takes Oathbringer and he goes to Sadeas' part of the tower.
Yeah.
And he goes to the audience room where Sadeas' wife is.
Eli, yeah.
And she's with Amaram, and he just sort of like puts it on the floor in the room and he's like, this is yours.
Like, here you go.
And they're like, why are you returning the blade after you killed my husband? And he's like, I didn't. The blade belongs to you guys. I'm not going to steal it from you.
Yeah.
I'm off. So he leaves it at that. And he goes back to... him and Amaram have a little, like, talky match.
Yeah.
He reminds Amaram that he still needs to face judgment for what he did.
Yeah.
Amaram reminds Dalinar that he's not better than him.
Oh, yeah.
And he leaves quite angry.
Yeah. Yes?
So he goes back to his room and he's like staring at the fabrial fireplace. And then he realises that Taravangi's been sort of like sat in front of it.
Yeah, just like waiting for him.
Not waiting for him, he's just been sort of left there by his minders.
Yeah.
Because obviously he can't do any harm.
Yeah.
And they have a like little philosophical discussion.
Yes, about like
Dalinar's like, there is still a bit of him left.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So then he's talking to the Stormfather and he asks to see a vision again. And he's like, actually, can you wait until Navani's here? Because I want her to scribe some stuff.
Yeah.
And Stormfather's like, why don't you just take her in with you?
Yeah.
Dalinar's like, I can do that?
Yeah.
And he's like, if a high storm's in a certain place, you can connect with whoever that person is.
Yeah.
So if a high storm's over Azir, he could connect with someone in Azir. He's like, cool. Keep that in mind.
I don't have to visit the kings anymore.
Well, he's like, well, Queen Fen is not going to enjoy her next storm.
Yeah.
So that's Dalinar.
Okay, that's how we end Dalinar for the
Yeah.
Yeah. But not the flashbacks.
No, we've still got his flashbacks to go. So the next character is Adolin.
Oh, yeah.
Who, after the first... He's got half of, like, the first chapter.
Yeah.
Him just being in charge of trade.
Yeah, it's a bit of a
being told that...
dud one, isn't it?
Yeah, being told that they found Sadeas' body and him going up and being there for that.
Yeah.
And then he's also got another half of the chapter.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not really enough to
really talk about.
Yeah. But he was visiting his dad's horse in the stable.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know, I miss my horse too.
Yeah.
And then Renarin comes in and he gives Adolin back the shard blade that Adolin won for him.
Yeah.
Says that he can't use it because it screams, but he's got his own blade now, so it's okay.
Yeah.
And they have, like, quite a cute little, like, brother moment.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment out of the stables.
And then he grabs Adolin's wrist.
Yeah.
And he's sort of, like, transfixed.
Yeah.
Adolin's like, what is going on? And then Renarin, like, quickly exits.
Yeah.
But after he's left, Adolin realises that he's fixed his broken wrist.
Doesn't Adolin see a vision of himself when...
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. This is something similar to something we've seen before elsewhere in the Cosmere.
Yeah.
I believe what we see... So, what Renarin does, it appears to be, is Renarin connected him to his spiritual self.
Yeah.
Which is like the perfect representation of Adolin, basically.
Yeah.
And it seems the vision he kind of gave him was similar to kind of like a gold shadow. You know, when you burn golds in Alamancer.
Yeah.
And it gives you like a vision of yourself, like another version of yourself. It kind of seems like that. Kind of that kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. So flashbacks.
Yeah.
So it's Dalinar's flashbacks, because it's Dalinar's book.
Yeah.
So the first flashback is him fighting on a field, and he's finding it too easy. He finds the crowned prince.
Yeah.
And they're having a fight. His shield breaks in the middle of the fight, and he has to lose his shield. And the thrill comes back to him.
Yeah.
And he really goes in on it, and he kills the crown prince.
Yeah.
And Sadeas is like, well, you should really get you some shard plates because...
You know.
You're going to need them. And he's like, nah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And an assassin shoots an arrow at him from, like...
Super, super, super far away.
Yeah. So he's like, cool, let's go and find that assassin.
Yes.
So he goes up to the assassin, he's like, you're in my crew now.
Yeah.
He's like, I just tried to kill you. And he's like, yeah, but you're good, so you're in my crew.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to join you. And he's like, you join me, I'll spare your city.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, they've been raping and pillaging their way across a Lefkar.
Yeah.
See, the guy reluctantly joins him.
That's Teleb, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they go and fight, like, the fight's over at this point. The soldiers are in a town. In the beginning, they're pillaging.
Yeah.
Find Sadeas, who has a few women that are lined
yeah.
up, waiting for him to do his thing.
Yeah, down. I was like, come on, Sadeas. Sadeas is like, oh.
So then the next flashback scene is waiting for battle.
Yes. He's got his shards at this point, right?
Yeah, now he's in his shard plates. I don't think he's got a shard blade yet. Some kingdoms have joined up to resist Gavilar's takeover, conquest. So they are about to fight Thaylenah, who has a shard blade. And the battle starts, and he's using, now that he's got shard plates, he can use a shard hammer.
Yeah.
So he's using this gigantic hammer to smash apart all of their catapults.
Yeah.
And after he's done that, they're sort of like on this plateau that like overhangs the city.
Yeah, the city's in like a crevice.
And Dalinar realizes that this is the perfect place to assassinate some shard plate wearers, because that's the only way you can take them out.
Yeah.
Luckily, he manages to warn Sadeas and Gavilar not to step on the platform.
Yeah.
And the platform falls. They've cut the supports to it so that with that much weight on it would fall down.
Yeah.
Hasn't evacuated his city, though, because he didn't tell anyone he was going to do this.
Yeah.
So Dalinar managed to survive the fall because
he's shard
plates. So he gets up and like hundreds of arrows are flying at him.
Yeah.
So he runs to the bridges, and as he's on the bridge, like trying to run from the arrows, a couple of guys start like cutting the bridge strings.
Yeah.
So he jumps to the bridge below, continues running. Some more guys go to cut that.
Yeah.
But
Tanalan.
Yeah. Like shoots arrows at them and kills them.
Wait. Teleb, do you mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, Teleb, yeah.
So he's running across the bridge, and there's two guys cutting the ropes for this one.
Yeah.
And Teleb shoots arrows at them, kills them. So Dalinar gets across the bridge.
Yeah.
Right, so Talalan asks why he should submit to the king.
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, well, the strongest military power deserves to win.
Yeah.
That's us, so we're going to win.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't be so sure about that. And they fight, and he breaks the platform that they're on.
Yeah.
And they fall. He's in shard plates, he's fine.
Talalan isn't.
No, he's like severely injured. And his men take him like through this little like door in the rocks.
Like a hidden door, yeah.
So Dalinar obviously follows, gets into this room where the crown prince is dead on the floor.
Yeah.
A beautiful woman crying over him. There's a small child in front with this gigantic shard blade. Crying, like...
Yeah.
Holding this gigantic blade. And then Dalinar is... it cuts to Dalinar just sipping his wine, thinking about the child screaming.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
Appreciating his new shard blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So Gavilar turns to him and he's like, hey, I have a feeling if we continue going about this way, people are gonna not like us.
Shocker.
I think we should change tactics.
Yeah.
Dalinar's like, why? It's working.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Gavilar's like, maybe we should play politics for a while.
Yeah.
Look after the lands we've got. Maybe people will want to join us if we're a good kingdom. Dalinar's not convinced because Dalinar loves killing.
Exactly, yeah.
So then the next flashback
is
dinner with Toll.
Yes.
So there's a storm going on outside.
Yeah.
They're sitting down for this lovely...
meal.
No. What's the word?
Feast?
No. Political... Like, when you talk to someone over dinner about political shit.
Like a party?
No. Like, I'm sure there's a certain word for it.
That's just going to the pub with my mates.
There's a high storm going on outside, and Dalinar just wants to eat his pork. He's been delivered some pork.
Yeah.
It's not got a knife. He goes to reach, like, the knife he keeps strapped to his leg, but it's not there.
Yeah.
Realizes he lent it to one of his soldiers. So he's like, just go and get it. Like, he couldn't get any of the attention of any of the waiters.
Yeah.
So he just walks out in the high storm.
Yeah.
Across to the next bunker. He's like, mate, where's my knife?
Where's my knife? And they're
He's
like,
I gave it to you.
There's a high storm on Dalinar.
It's like, I gave it back, mate.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, where is it? And he's like, you used it to do this. And he's like, yeah, guess I've lost it. So he just walks back in.
Yeah. And everyone's looking at him like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, bit wet.
Yeah.
So then Toe gets up from the table and leaves. And Gavilar's like, wow, that was perfect, Dalinar. How did you know to do that? And Dalinar's like, what?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I've been trying, like, Toe wasn't convinced that we'd be able to protect him.
Yeah.
You've just proved that beautifully.
Yeah.
So then he finally gets await his attention.
Yeah.
And he asks for a knife. And in the meantime, he's having to sit there listening to the boring politics talk.
Yeah.
Having to watch his pork go cold.
Ugh.
Not too happy about this. So at that point, Navani and Sadeas' wives walk in.
Yeah.
And Gavilar's like, oh, sorry. They walk in, so Dalinar has to order the strongest wine so that he can down it, because he's still very much in love with Navani at this point.
Yeah.
So Gavilar's like, oh, what's Evie like? Because the women and men are separate.
Rooms. Yeah.
And they're like, she's very dense. And they're like, cool, so's Toe. I don't think they're pretending. I think they genuinely are this sort of...
silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Evie's walked in as well, and she's at the bar talking to Toe.
Yeah.
Whilst they're having their conversation. And the discussion comes to the fact that they have a pair of shard plates that they want.
I believe they have a plate and a blade?
Plates.
Or just plate?
And they're like, they've got plates, we want them.
Yeah.
Best way to get them, because they belong to Evie, is through marriage. And they're like, Dalinar, you're single, take one for the team. And he's like, yeah, she's hot, I'll do it.
Yeah, he's like,
they're like,
sure.
oh,
yeah,
we weren't expecting you to.
Yeah.
And then he's sitting there trying to cut his pork with like this stupid tiny knife.
Yeah.
It's like, I need a better knife. And he's like, oh, the assassin that's about to kill Gavilar has a great knife. So he takes out the assassin quite quickly.
Yeah.
Takes a knife.
Washes it
in his wine.
Yeah.
Starts eating his pork. And everyone stares at him like, what
they're like,
on earth are you doing?
No, that's disgusting. And he's like, what? I'm not going to drink it.
And then...
It's a great flashback.
Yeah. Whilst he was out in the storm...
Yes.
He sees a monster flying in the storm with glowing legs.
Yes.
I have a theory about that.
Interesting.
But we're not getting into it until
later
part
on.
2.
Yes.
Maybe even part 3.
Maybe.
I don't know where it's going to land yet, but I've got a theory about him.
So this is, if you guys don't know, this is the Stormstriders, which are massive things in the high storm that are described as striding around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got something with them.
Interesting, because I've got nothing.
Bear with me.
Cool.
It's just too early for me to bring that one up yet. So then the next flashback is Evie praying with Dalinar before the high storm.
Yeah.
And she's encouraging him not to kill out of anger.
Yes.
And he's like, nah.
He's like, nah.
I enjoy it too much.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think you understand, Evie. It's really fun.
So this is kind of the last deciding battle for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, if they win this battle, all of Kholinar is theirs.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot on this battle. Alefkar, I don't know.
Kholinar's the capital they already. That's where they're
okay. Well, if they win this, they get Alefkar.
Yeah.
So he looks over and he sees the troops are doing badly.
Hmm.
So he goes to support and he starts ploughing through them.
Yes.
And he gets lost in the battle. He's just he's completely in his zone.
Yeah.
He's
engulfed by the thrill.
Yeah. And he starts hearing someone shouting his name. He's like, go away, annoying voice. And they're like, Dalinar!
Yeah.
Dalinar! And then he gets pulled out of it.
Yeah.
He turns around and realizes that he's killed every single troop in the area.
Yeah, he has killed like all of them.
He should not have a shard blade.
Yeah.
And then he realizes that a couple of the corpses with the smoky out eyes are his personal guards.
Yes.
He was like, oh.
He's like, oh no.
And Kadash is the one that was shouting to try and like...
wake him up.
Yeah. And he's like, mate, you've angered the Highprince so much he's coming. Like, he's going to come and fight you.
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, cool.
Excellent.
So he starts fighting this other shard bearer who's got blade and plates.
Plate, yeah.
And they're having this big fight. And it's not going well for the other guy. So the other guy like climbs up to this cliff.
Yes.
And they get Dalinar gets to the top and they're having this massive fight at the top of this cliff.
Yeah.
And
It's like a spire of rock, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the other guy loses his footing and is like falling, like hanging off the edge.
Yeah.
And he's like, please, spare me. Like,
Yeah.
don't do this. Like, spare me. I will surrender. Dalinar's like, knife to the face.
Yes. And he's like, no.
And then he is walking towards Gavilar's war tent.
Yeah.
And he's thinking to himself, and he's like, man, I am the strongest being in all of Alethkar.
Yeah.
I, like, the strongest deserve to rule.
Yeah.
I should be king, not Gavilar.
Yes.
And, like, he's getting himself all worked up, and he's, like, caught up in the thrill of the battle.
Yeah.
And he approaches the tent with his blade in his hands, and he's about to kill Gavilar.
Yeah.
And Gavilar, like, turns around laughing, and he's like, mate!
We did it!
We did it! Like, it's all good. And then he manages to just about stop himself. He's horrified with with the thoughts that were
what
in
he
his
was about
head.
to do, yeah.
And he's like, I brought you a gift. There's some blades and plates out there for you.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
How about that Blackthorn, eh?
I am loving Blackthorn.
Yeah.
For me, Dalinar is quite a boring character.
Okay.
Like, current Dalinar.
Yeah.
He just sort of, like, mopes about and, like...
He just like he's trying his best.
Yeah, but, like, his politics are what bore me.
Yeah.
And then, like, because the last couple of books, like, we've not really seen him in action. It's all just been politics. And when we've seen him in action, he's really cool.
It's great, yeah.
Like, those are his best scenes.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see the Blackthorn in his prime.
Yeah.
And just how different of a person Dalinar
Used
is.
to be, yeah.
Because he's gone from being this sort of like, just want to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Just want another battle. I just want to go and fight more. To being like who he is now. Like, it's such a change.
You spend so much of the first two books hearing about his reputation.
Yeah.
Like, people, like, he says, oh, people expect me to be warmongering. People expect this and that of me.
Yeah.
But you just don't see it. And then when you finally do get to see it, you're like, oh, that's why he has this reputation. He really was the kind of guy who would just go into a battle and just kill everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on Dalinar.
Yeah.
I don't think that his Night Mother curse...
Okay.
Nightwatcher. I have a feeling that the boon was that he wouldn't remember about his wife until he fell in love again.
Okay.
Because I have a feeling that he went to her...
Yeah.
Asking her to be the man that Evie expected him to be. Like, or that Evie wanted him to be.
Yeah.
Because he went to her after Evie's death.
Yeah.
So I think he went to her wanting to be the type of man that Evie would want him to be.
Yeah.
And I think that the boon was that, like, he wouldn't remember anything about her until he fell in love again.
Okay.
Because until he remarries. Because he didn't remember anything about her until they got remarried.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to do with it.
Yeah.
And I really think that he didn't go wanting to lose memories of her. I think he went wanting to better himself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like where you're going with that. That's yeah.
Thank you for not saying it.
What?
It's a good theory.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I currently stand on that. Like, there's something more to him just wanting to forget his wife.
Yes. Yeah. It's not quite a normal, as Navani said, no one's ever had their curse fade.
Yeah.
So something's not quite right, and it's not a normal kind of black and white.
And I think looking at the man that he was back when he was with Evie, yeah, I could see him not wanting to be that man anymore.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
He wasn't the best of people.
Yeah.
So, Kaladin.
Okay. Let's get Kaladin. We promise this video will end eventually, guys.
So Kaladin is flying to Hearthstone. He ran out of Stormlight, so he's had to walk the last couple of days.
Yeah.
The Everstorm's already hit, so he's worried that he's too late.
Yeah.
So he goes in at night, and he sees that, like, there's a light on in Roshone's
house.
manor.
Yeah.
So he approaches, and a guard spots him. It was like, you there, get inside.
Yeah.
He's like, you've got slave brands, and that one says you're dangerous. Let's go and find Roshone, shall we?
It's like, maybe not.
And he's walking him to find Roshone.
Yeah.
And Kaladin can hear, like, screams in a room.
Okay.
And the guy's like, oh, don't mind that, that's the surgeon's room.
Okay.
And Kaladin's like, cool, I'm off.
Bye then.
So Kaladin goes in and he finds Lirin. And he finds Lirin in there, and Lirin stares at him for a minute, and he's like, what's the meaning of this? And he's like, hi, Dad.
Yeah.
And Lirin's like, oh, my boy.
Like, oh my god, I do not recognise this giant block of a man.
Well, he's not seen him since he was like 15.
Yeah.
And he's now like
18, 20, 19, 20?
ish.
18, 19, 20.
It's been a few years.
Yeah.
So then he calls for
Hesina
to come and join them. And they're having a lovely, like, family moment.
Yeah.
And Kaladin is telling them that Tien's dead.
Yeah.
And he's sorry that he couldn't protect him. And they're like, we already knew he was dead.
Yeah.
We thought you were. We're just so happy to have you back.
Yeah, it's like, we know, we thought we lost both our children. We found out one of them's still alive. Like, this is a good occasion. So
they're having a nice big family cuddle. And Kaladin is then given some, like, hot soup to have.
Yeah.
And Lirin's talking to the guard. And he's like, no, you are not kicking my son out. I don't care about those brands.
Yeah.
He's my son. He stays here, or I leave and you lose your surgeon.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, well,
Cool.
So then Hesina is like, look, Kaladin, it's okay. Roshone's not as bad as he used to be. Like, he's seems to feel sorry about what happened, and he's been nicer to us since you left.
Yeah.
Kaladin's like, cool. So then Roshone appears. And Kaladin Kelsiers him. So he just straight up punches him
Immediately
in the face.
punches him in the face. As
he's like, that was for my friend Moshe.
Yeah.
Ooh. So Roshone is furious because the dark eyes does not touch a light eyes like that. So he immediately orders, like, the guards to attack him. Yeah. And Kaladin's like, stand down, men. Yeah. And the guards don't know what to do.
They're like, why would we obey your commands?
No. As in, like, they don't know who to obey. Yeah. And Roshone's like, why are you not attacking him? I told you to. And Kaladin's like, we need to go somewhere quiet to talk. I've got stuff to discuss with you. Yeah. He's like, what?
He's like, what do you mean?
And then Kaladin orders one, like, turns to the guard and he's like, which room is empty? And he's like, the library? Kaladin's like, cool. So he starts walking off. Yeah. And Roshone's like, what's going on here? You can't come into my house and start ordering people around. Who do you think you are? So Kaladin summons Syl. Yeah. His eyes turn blue. He's like, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. And he's like, you better bow down to me. So they go to the library to talk civilizedly. He finds out that the Parshmen transformed and they just left. They didn't do any damage. Like, everything's fine. Everyone's just here because they were worried. Yeah. Storm coming in the other direction, you know. It's a weird time. Yeah. It looks like they're heading towards Thaylenah? Yes, the capital. Cool. So Kaladin asks for maps of the area. He asks for a spam read that's connected to Dalinar. Yeah. So that he can talk to Dalinar. And Roshone doesn't really... Roshone sort of seems like he's given up on life a little bit. And Kaladin's like, no, you need to lead these men. These are your people. You're protecting them. Yeah. And Lirin? Yeah. No, the girl. Laurel. Laurel arrives and she's like, I'm in charge here. I will help them. Yeah. And Kaladin's like, cool. And she's like, you wanted your spam reads? Here you go. Yeah. And he's like, cool, can you come and scribe for me? She's like, fine, but you don't hit my husband again. He is a good man.
Yeah.
And they're in a room. Like, she set up the spam read. She's like, why would he even want to talk to you?
Yeah.
And he's like, he does. Trust me.
Yeah.
And then he's like, look, I've got some work to do. When I'm finished, I'm going to come back and I'm going to get you and I'm going to save you. She's like, I don't need saving.
Yeah, I've lived my life. I've moved on.
Yeah, me and my husband are happy. Can you just accept that?
Yeah.
He's like, okay, cool, fine.
Yeah.
So this spam, like, they're waiting for the spam read message, and then suddenly it starts flashing that there's a message back, and she's shocked.
Yeah.
And it's Dalinar like, Kaladin, we're so glad that you're alive. What's the report? We miss you.
Yeah.
Kaladin's like, see, I missed. So then he agrees with Dalinar that the best course of action is to follow the parchment, find out what's going on, and then for Kaladin to return.
Yeah.
He takes a spam read so that he can keep in touch with them as he's going about.
Yeah.
And just send one glyph a day just to... I'm okay.
Yeah.
So Dalinar is about to leave, and
Cena
is holding a little baby.
Yeah.
And she's like, Kaladin, some girls were watching him for me whilst I was helping your dad, but this is your brother.
Yeah.
So Kaladin picks him up and he's cuddling him.
He's got a baby brother.
And he's like, what's his name?
Yeah.
And it's Oridon.
Yeah.
Which means child of light.
Yeah.
It's so cute. So he asks them to leave and come with them. He says that the desolation's here, and he wants them to come with him to Irith. No, you say it.
Irith.
He wants them to come with him so that they'll be safe. But his dad is very adamant that they're not leaving the village. Got a theory on that one.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say it now.
Yeah.
So, buckle up for this one.
Okay.
I, at this point, am convinced that his dad is like a herald or something.
Okay.
Right. And I'm convinced that, he can't leave this place.
Yeah.
He's got some sort of connection to this place and he can't leave it.
Yeah.
Because for some reason he won't go.
Yeah, he won't leave.
And this is not the first time that he's refused to leave this place. No matter how badly they treat him, he doesn't seem to want to leave.
There was a conversation in Way of Kings where he's like, with Kaladin's like, why don't you just leave? And he's like, I can't.
Yeah. So I think he physically can't. I think he's got some sort of connection to this land.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool.
That's my theory on why they won't leave.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Kaladin's mum won't just go and take the baby.
Yeah.
You know. So then Kaladin, all of the other village people have, heard this.
Yeah.
So Kaladin, lashes himself into the air, so he's, hovering in the air. It's like, you heard me. The desolation is coming back. You people need to be safe. The Knights Radiant are here to protect you.
Yeah.
Then he flies off.
Yeah.
And then he's going around visiting all of the local villages.
Yeah.
Finding out what happened with their parshmen. None of the other villagers seem to have been attacked either.
Yeah.
He's swapping spheres so that he can keep flying.
Yeah.
He gets to the last village and he swaps his spheres. They're like, oh, the parshmen did attack here.
Yeah.
We'll show you. And the parshmen had stolen all of the grain out of the grain store.
Yeah.
And they're they went over that hill. They're not too far away. So Kaladin follows and he finds the parshmen camp.
Yeah.
So he's spying on it from a bush. And they're just normal.
Yeah.
They're just...
You have the horrible realization that they're not monsters, they're people.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, that's worse.
Yeah, well, they're sitting around playing cards and they're cooking and they're just doing normal things.
Yeah.
And Kaladin's like, I can't fight these. They're not doing anything wrong.
They're just trying to survive. They just took food because they needed it for their children.
Yeah. So then this golden spreen flies through the sky and she's like, guys, Are you not even noticing there's a human like lying
Crouched in
there?
that bush.
So they tie Kaladin up.
Yeah.
He gives up like his weapons and his spam reed and his spears and stuff.
Yeah.
Spears. And he is quite happy just
being tied up. He knows he can get out any second. Like,
Yeah.
he knows he can get out. Like, he's not
he's quite happy just to be their prisoner. So they are trying to talk about what to do with him. And they're talking about moving on now that they've been found. And they're going to move at night because obviously that's safest for them.
Yeah.
So they're going along, they're travelling, and Kaladin tries to strike up a conversation with one of the parshmen. And he's
Yeah.
like, hey, look at my forehead.
I'm a slave as well.
I'm like you. And the parchment is like, no,
Yeah.
you are not like me. You might have been a slave, but they didn't take your mind away from you.
Yeah.
Like, they took everything. Like, you will never understand that.
Yeah.
And Kaladin's like, oh, okay.
It's like, oh, okay.
I understand.
Fair enough.
And he's like, we don't have to fight the humans. And the parchment's like, yes. They imprisoned us for such a long time.
Generations.
Like, they're not just going to let us be free. Like, they're going to want us to come back and work for free.
Yeah.
And we're not going to do that anymore. So this is the only way that we can be free.
Yeah.
Kaladin's like, yeah, I can understand that. So he's like, look, I can help you. I can teach you how to make spears. I can teach you how to sort that grain so that it doesn't go moldy.
Yeah.
Like, let me help you. And then they tie him up. And they're sort of talking about what they're going to do with him. So he cuts his bonds.
Yeah.
And like he strolls over and he's like, look, let me help you make a fire.
Yeah.
And they don't believe that, because all of the wood is like wet because the storm's just being like,
Yeah.
Are they still in the middle of the weeping?
I can't
They're
remember.
in the middle of the weeping.
Yes.
So everything's wet and they're like, you can't. And he's like, look, trust me, I can. Just
Yeah.
give me my dagger and I will show you. And he teaches them.
Yeah.
So when we next go back to Kaladin, he's sort of become part of the Parshman group.
He's started to lead them kind of thing, isn't he?
Yeah, he's showing them how to make weapons. He showed them how to fix their grain so that it's not going to go bad. He's shown them how to make shelters.
And
He's shown them,
fires and-
yeah,
Yeah.
like
He's done the Kaladin thing where he's taken a group of people
Yeah.
and he's helped them.
yeah. And then Syl, who has sort of been hiding from this Spren,
Yeah, the other Spren.
approaches him and she's like, there's a storm coming.
Yeah.
So he manages to convince the Parshman to come and find shelter. He buys a barn for the night from this guy, and they're all huddled in this barn
Yeah.
whilst the storm's going on. And like one of the little children girls approaches him and she's like, why are you guys trying to kill us? Why can't you just let us be?
Yeah.
And Kaladin's like, I don't know how to explain slavery to a 7-year-old.
Yes. Fair enough.
Fair. So then he walks over to the door and he's like eyeing up his pouch that's currently outside being reinfused with stormlight.
Yeah.
He's like, this has been nice, but I can't stay. I have to leave them at some point.
Yeah.
And the yellow Spren approaches him and asks him if she'll fight for them.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, if he'll fight for them.
Yeah.
He's like, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this one's, I want to say, is called Ixley.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember. So then they get to the Parshman city.
Yeah.
They've taken over a town. They've like pulled all of the humans together and are keeping them in like a little barn.
Yes. Yes.
And they are trying to take over the town.
Yeah.
And so they're waiting to be processed to go in. And they come up and they're like, you've got a human. He needs to go
In the barn.
in the barn.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, he's one of us. He's going to fight with us.
Yeah.
And Kaladin's like, yeah, this is the time that I need to leave.
Yeah.
So Kaladin like grabs his pouch off of one of their belts, sucks in Stormlight, flies up,
Yeah.
and he's like looks down and he sees like the hurt on his group's face.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna regret this.
Yeah.
But Syl's told him there's a storm coming.
Yeah.
So he knows that he has to leave now. But there's a storm coming, and now he realizes that they've got humans like in this pen.
I was gonna say, they're not even in a barn, they're just like in a paddock.
There's sort of like a load that are kept inside, and there's like the extra overspill that are kept in like an old pig pen.
Yeah.
There's a storm coming, and he realizes that they're going to be left out in that barn because the Parshmen aren't ready to hide away from the storm. So he's like, oh boy. So he flies back down and he starts like giving orders to Parshmen. He's like, there's a storm coming. Get those humans into that barn now.
Yeah.
And they're very slow to follow.
Yeah.
But the humans are like running to the barn. And then some Voidbringers appear. So Kaladin like flies up in the air and they follow him.
Yeah.
And so he's flying through the storm like trying to lose them.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the Stormfather and he's like, how can you do this? Like, there's people down there. Can you help
Protect
them?
Yeah.
Stormfather's like, yeah, mate, I can't do that. I've had thousands of years. This happens all the time.
I'm a storm. I can't stop blowing, just like you can't stop breathing, you know?
So Kaladin's like, great. He manages to lose the Voidbringers in the storm.
Yeah.
He gets back down. He starts, like, grabbing people to, like...
save them. Get
them into the barn. And the storm is, like, hitting and, like, people are being blown away.
Yeah.
He puts his hand out and, like, he parts the wind.
Yeah, and just hundreds of wind spread just explode around him. And, like, yeah. And he parts the storm. It's such a cool moment. It is absolutely excellent. Yeah. Yes. So then, once they're all safely in the barn, he flies with the storm to... Yeah. Irathera. Yeah. He doesn't know how to get there, so his plan is to fly to the Shattered Plains and then just take the portal. Yeah. But Syl's like, look... we're going west. Head that way. And he's like, you told me you didn't know where we're going. And she's like, I think the Stormfather feels bad. Aww. So he flies that way, and he eventually is outside... Irathera. Yeah. And that's where we leave Kaladin. Nice. Yeah. It was a cute little chapter. It's Kaladin in this part is just like, it's just like a day, Adventures of Kaladin. Yeah. Like everyone else is getting on with the book stuff, and Kaladin's just like, I'm just going to hang out with do my Kaladin thing with some Voidbringers. Yeah. You know. All good. Yeah. So then we have our interludes. Oh, yes. The interludes are very short. Okay. For part one. Yeah. Interesting. So, the first one is Pooley. Pooley? Oh, yes, Pooley. He's keeper of a lighthouse. Yes. And he's so upset about the fact that the storm has broken all of the buildings. Yeah. But he's not upset because he collects, like, wood. So he's making money. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm so upset about this storm. Yoink. Yeah, yeah. And he is keeping his lighthouse as bright as he can. Yes. For those with light in their pockets, lost to the infinite sea. Yeah. Who are going to return. Yeah. Fancy that, eh? Yeah. It's a very, very weird one because it's kind of like, is he just talking about radiance? Or is there something else? Don't know. We don't know. We don't know. I'm sure I'll work it out in the next book. Yeah, maybe. We might find out something more about this. I think he also mentions the Night of Sorrows, that there might be something else, actually. Yeah. And then the next one is Alestia? Oh, Alista, yes. Alista. She's an Arden on an Arden-only island. Yeah. And she's trying to read, but everyone's being too noisy. They're talking about politics, and they're not here for politics, they're here to read. Yes. So she takes herself outside, and she's reading a romance book. Yeah. A romance book about two brothers trying to romance a woman.
Wonder why.
Wonder why. I think this is probably about as self-aware as Brandon gets when it comes to this kind of thing, where he's literally like, yeah, this is something I have in my books a lot, yeah.
Yeah. And then one of the other Ardents approaches and he's like, can you please help me with the Dawn chart? Like, you're the best one at transcribing it.
Yes. Because
his client wants it really soon.
Yes.
I have a feeling that his client is Amaram.
Interesting.
Because the Dawn chart is like the transcript of Navani and Dalinar's vision time.
Yeah.
I think that he wants it to find something in there to, like, bring Dalinar down.
Okay. Interesting.
Because I thought at first Sadeas' wife.
Eli, yeah.
But then Amaram was, like, researching
things.
Yeah. And he was part of Gavilar's
Sons of Honor.
So I have a feeling that he's the client that they're talking about.
Cool.
And then the last one is Venli.
Yeah.
Venli.
Oh no.
You don't have to eat a shoe this time. Venli is following a void sprint.
Yeah.
Through the chasms. And he's told her that they're going to go and bring back Eshonai. She's like, yay, my sister's still alive.
Yay.
And they find her propped up against her shard blade.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, Eshonai, you're alive! But Eshonai's not alive.
No, Eshonai is definitely not alive.
No.
I remember we got this interlude before Oathbringer came out. It came out during the preview chapters. And I remember when we were in our last house. Yeah. And I was literally like doing the washing up. And I was listening to it, because I think it was read. It was a reading, not like something.
Yeah.
And I was like washing up a glass, and like when they found it and it was revealed that Eshonai was dead, I dropped the glass. Like I nearly broke that glass. Oh. Like I distinctly remember that moment of horror, of just being like, no.
The realization you have to eat a shoe.
The realization I had to eat the shoe. Yeah.
I get it.
That interlude chapter hit me hard. I think that was when I really realised I really liked Eshonai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Eshonai's dead.
Yeah.
And the Spren's like, cool, take the shard plates.
Yeah.
And Venli and whoever she's with, I can't remember their name.
Venli's like once mate and like a couple of dudes, yeah.
She's like, but that's a dead body. We don't touch dead bodies. We let them lie. And he's like...
Ulim's like...
Yeah. It's like, shard plate, mate. Let's
get that shard plate.
Get that.
Yeah.
So then she's horrified as they start taking the shard plates off of Eshonai's body.
Yeah, looting that corpse.
And they just leave her corpse there and they
leave.
Walk away.
Yeah.
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 It is sad.
Just leave her dead in that chasm. Just
sad.
It's very, very sad. It's not how Eshonai should have gone out. Eshonai should have survived. Right,
so that was part 1.
Wow, that was really long.
Yeah.
So
I think part 1 might be the longest
part in any book, like,
because my notes for part 2 are nowhere near this long.
So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much, guys. Well done. Hopefully the next one will be shorter. And let us know what your guys' favourite parts of part 1 of Oathbringer were. What theories did you have about like Odiums Champion? Oh yes, Odiums Champion you think is Renarin.
Yeah.
Writer of Oathbringer you think is Adolin.
Yeah.
And you think he kills Dalinar?
What?
You said you thought that because the writer of Oathbringer says they kill someone dear to them, and you said you think Adolin kills Dalinar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or his baby.
His baby. Yeah. Man, we didn't even talk about May Aladar. And then leave comments down below your opinions of May Aladar, and then thank you guys for watching. Follow us on 17thshard.com. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Talk to your pet about us. Patreon. Give us money. if you do that, then you get these a few days early. We normally post them like Thursday, Friday instead of Mondays for patrons.
Yeah.
And then we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.